Hello, this is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. You're watching a lecture upon Thomas Aquinas. This will be the last lecture on Aquinas today. You are learning a bit about Aquinas' philosophical underpinnings. And of course, for a thinker like Aquinas, so much of the philosophical had to do with the theological, although you can get out into some of the texts that are, of course, not the text of the Summa Theologica, and you can see him working with in a more philosophical key only. Last time I talked about natural law, and it's very important that when you see the word natural law and you think of Aquinas or anyone who's a natural law theorist, that you don't understand natural law the way we have understood the laws of nature, right? Laws of nature since the Enlightenment are regularities, right? I drop this, it falls at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's a law of nature. Why? Because it's a regularity. So it's most often taken to be the case that we understand laws of nature as descriptive statements. These are the regularities of nature. Now, I don't want to go down the road of getting into a whole philosophical discussion about the ontological status of laws of nature. Certainly there are reasons why things happen, of course, and we can talk about that in scientific theory. So, I mean, good philosophy of science will penetrate beyond just mere descriptions and try to go to the micro facts, if you will, that account for these regularities. But still, as we talk about natural regularities, we're talking in the descriptive key. But when we're talking about natural law, we're not talking descriptive, we're talking normative. And this is very important because, of course, you hear all the time, well, God made me in a certain way, so that's the way I am, so that's how I should behave. Of course, there's a very famous argument in Lutheran land right now having to do with the so-called homoerotic activity. Well, I have a disposition to behave in this way. God created me this way. This is how I am differently abled, and therefore I ought to do these things because that's how God created me. Of course, this is a completely distorted understanding of natural law because, of course, in the theological tradition, in Aquinas, natural law is not how we are by nature. You understand this? Let me repeat this. Natural law is not how we are by nature. Right? We are by nature fallen into sin, and the sin is a tilting away from natural law. So by nature, we're not natural. You got to understand this. Just because you see the word natural law, don't think that it means some sort of way things are by nature. Natural law is our apprehension of God's eternal law. Now, so this gets into sin. For Aquinas, sin is not a radical depravity, as it becomes emphasized later in the Reformation. For Aquinas, while humans can do good, they cannot do that proper good, which is in acting in accordance with one's deepest essential nature. We're always going to be out of whack. We can't be deeply ourselves. We inherit a guilt and a disorder from Adam, right? And this inherited disorder improperly places the will and the appetite above the intellect. I've talked about this before, haven't I? In a properly ordered human being, you have the intellect, and then through the activity of the will, the appetite is controlled, right? That's how we are. To live in accordance with natural law would be to live in this way, where the intellect, through the will, controls the appetite. However, under the conditions of existence, this is called sin, the appetite can take primacy over the intellect, right? And this impropriety here is natural to human beings, and it drives us away from what we are by our deepest nature, which is our created nature. So the natural law, when you hear that, you got to think in an Aristotelian key. The natural law deals with our nature, which is our deepest development as sons and daughters of God, as created by God. Okay, for Aquinas, while the guilt of original sin is remitted at baptism, a tendency towards disorder remains, and so we're always going to be in this situation of tending to place the appetite above the intellect. Now, Aquinas follows Lombard. Of course, Lombard is the author of the Sentences, in the immediate tradition in distinguishing gratia gratis data. A little Latin phrases here. Let's get them on the board. Gratia gratis data, right? Gratias gratis data, from gratia gratum faciens. Finally, from gratia gratis dans. Gratia gratis dans. Now, if you know just a little bit of Latin here, you can figure this out. This is grace that gives by its grace. This is God himself. The grace, God is grace, by himself giving grace. This is the grace having been given by grace. Okay? This is the grace having been given by God's grace, which we're going to see is connected to operant grace for Aquinas. And this is the grace making grace, gratia gratum faciens, the grace which makes grace, which of course is habitual grace. It's a healing grace. That's the best way to think about it. And the grace that makes grace for our good friend Aquinas makes grace that is here and now in me. Okay? God himself gives the grace by which humans are graced. Okay? So now Aquinas can distinguish, going back to our good friend Augustine, actual and habitual grace. Operative grace and habitual, cooperative grace is how Augustine talks about it. Operative and cooperative grace. But what Aquinas does is he talks about actual operative grace and actual cooperative grace and habitual operative grace and habitual cooperative grace. The actual operative grace is the grace that inclines the will to desire good and operates without the need of human being. So this is the grace by God given. And the actual cooperative grace assists the new renewed will, right, to actualize its good intentions. The habitual operative grace, now this has everything to do with the gratia gratum faciens. The habitual operative grace is the formal principle of justification. It's the gratia creata. When you think of Aquinas, you got to think of gratia creata. And when you think of Augustine and Lombard and Bonaventure, you're going to think of gratia increata. This means created grace and uncreated grace. Now, if God is grace, right, and God is uncreated, you got uncreated grace. Habitual grace, habitual operative grace, is a formal principle of justification. It creates the gratia creata in us, right? And then God justifies us on the basis of the gratia creata, right? Habitual cooperative grace is the formal principle of merit in us, and it requires human cooperation because, of course, we have to participate in that. While the old law tells human beings what to do, it cannot give them the ability to do it. The new law is the grace of the Holy Spirit given to the faithful. Justification accomplishes a transformation of the sinner. It is a just making. Now, sometimes Lutheran theologians will say, well, Lutherans, extrinsic, there we go, extrinsic. That Lutheran theology talks about extrinsic grace, and traditional Catholic theology talks about intrinsic grace. Don't go there quite. All kinds of Catholic theology doesn't go with intrinsic grace. There are all kinds of gradations of this. Read McGrath's 2-volume work on the history of justification. It's very important that you read that. Okay, the gratia increata of Augustine is transformed by Aquinas into a gratia creata. Grace is thereby transformed into a habit of the soul. It is something that human beings possess, and of course this is something that Luther disliked. So, although everything finally has to do with God and what God gives, the so-called objective nature of the gratuity of grace, while everything has to do with that, Aquinas' focus on the subjective mechanics of grace tends to obscure this a bit, and so Luther comes along and he doesn't like it at all. He doesn't like Thomism for all kinds of reasons, but for certainly right here at the gratia creata, the idea that human beings can somehow possess something that in the sight of God is worthy of justification is for him anathema. Now, we have to distinguish two more little Latin phrases, and then we're done with our little whirlwind tour of Aquinas. We have to distinguish merita de condigno, condigno from merita de congruo. We certainly try to make all of our things squeak here at the Institute of Lutheran Theology, right? The merita de condigno is the merit of salvation produced by the actions of the Holy Spirit, because only the Holy Spirit's actions can actually merit salvation from God. But the merita de congruo is the merit of salvation produced by actions of the human will. So the human will is kind of brought along with, and it's that those merits that are congruent with our will, congruo, not condign, that is worthy of salvation. Nothing congruent with our will is finally worthy of salvation. And we can go into this much more deeply, but it's a very important topic, actually, for Aquinas. This distinction between the merita de condigno and the merita de congruo seeks to preserve human freedom and responsibility. This is all we're going to say about Aquinas today. I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. Thank you for coming.